The Air Jordan was something that transcended all these different borders that hadn't really been transcended before.
The shoes gained very quickly a huge street value in American culture.
And all of a sudden, overnight, it was just like everybody wanted them.
We're now the 80s, and we're putting a black guy on television to sell shoes to white America.
They'd hoped to sell $3 million worth of shoes, and they sold $126 million the first year.
Everything he was doing correlated to those shoes. And we bought into that because what was the tagline they were selling us? Is it the shoes?
Hello, my name is Anthony Andrews, co-founder and creative director of We Are Parable, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to a very special screening of One Man and His Shoes. And to celebrate the screening, we got in touch with one of the biggest sneaker enthusiasts in the UK, probably in Europe, probably the world, Mr. Franklin Boateng, aka King of Trainers. All right, Franklin, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, very well. Very happy to speak to you today about One Man and His Shoes and about your experience with the Jordan brand. So, first of all, can you tell me about your first experience with Michael Jordan and the brand itself? When did that reference point start for you?
You know, I was very fortunate enough to kind of go to the States a lot when I was younger. And, you know, they never really used to show basketball in the UK like that, like back in the day. I think we had, was it NBA Jam on ITV or something like that? That used to show the highlights back in the day. But no, I had cousins and family in America, so they used to kind of bring me up to date with what was happening. And I loved basketball, like when I was younger. And then I think, like, it wasn't until probably like 89 when the Jordan 4s were they got released here. I think that was the first real shoe to kind of get a full release internationally. Because like the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, they were mainly kind of stateside. So you had to have like family or someone out there. And it was the Jordan 4s that I think that really got like an international push. And then, from there, that's kind of, you know, my real kind of experience with Jordan.
You are the self-proclaimed king of trainers. So I know you've got probably thousands of kicks in your collection, but how many Jordans would you say you own?
You know, I don't think I've ever counted the Jordans in particular. Yeah. I always say that it's about quality, not quantity. Sure. I always tell people that. I don't know. It could be 100. It could be close to, or 100 or plus. I'm not sure. It probably is. Like I've never counted. I've never ever counted, to be fair. What
do you think is so special about the sort of legacy between the marketing of Jordan and the person himself, and then the shoes? What do you think is that connection that has led to this lasting legacy that Jordan has?
Yeah, I think it's winning. And Nike were very strategic in who they picked to do partnerships with. They believed in him so much, they just knew he was going to win. Even when they first signed him, he was on the bench for, I think, like a year or half a season or something like that because he got an injury, you know, and he never made like the finals until a couple of years after. And he actually never won his first title until the 90s. So it's one of those situations where they just believed in him and he was just such a driver and he won. And that's where the marketing comes in, because technically if he didn't win, there's nothing to market. Does that make sense? So I think it's the winning attitude, him actually winning the games, being a prolific player. And that's kind of what helped the whole Nike campaign.
This last season, my next guest led his team, the Chicago Bulls, into the NBA playoff scoring record of an amazing 63 points in a single game. He is only 23 years of age. Please welcome Michael Jordan, folks.
Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. How are you? Come on over. My, oh my.
I got one thing to say.
Yeah, what's that?
I see Adidas shoes.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, now, we can't talk about this because the last time we started talking about shoes, there was a huge deal, and they had to run up to the legal department and wake up the attorneys. Now, I know you got a huge contract with the company. Put your feet down. Now, how much do you... No, stop that. Now, they won't let any of this on.
Okay.
Now, how much do you get paid just to wear these shoes?
A lot.
Definitely. Now, you know, we are of a certain age, so we remember when, when Michael Jordan was very much playing, and I'm sure, like you, I remember when he won his, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth title. But for a lot of the younger generation who are walking around wearing Jordans, the sort of early 20s, sort of teenagers who are wearing Jordans. Where do you think that love of Jordans come from? How have Jordan been able to continue that legacy?
I think Nike and Jordan Brand have been really smart in kind of capturing that spirit, you know, over and over and over again. And like, I mean, they just release a lot of product. I think that's what it is. They release a lot of product. They align the product with other athletes. Like Jordan Brand's got his own stable of athletes that he managed that's under the Jordan Brand. Do you get what I mean? So that in itself is part of it. But I think it's also just the hype and the product. I mean, what a lot of people don't know is I think it was 2018, 2019, 175 Jordans were released. That's a phenomenal amount of Jordans. Like, that's probably about 3 pairs a week. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you're going to kind of get the market, if I'm honest. So that's what you have to realize. But the kids now, is that aspiration in it? Because a lot of kids, maybe their older brothers wore it, older sisters wore it. And, you know, they've heard the legacy, they've seen the legacy. Because the legacy's still here. He's still making moves in business and other things. So
how do you think sneaker marketing has been influenced by what Nike, Jordan, and, you know, in particular, Sonny Vaccaro, who's mentioned in the film? How do you think Nike have influenced the whole sneaker marketing game, the way sneakers come to market?
Yeah, I think Nike's been rebellious. You know, like when you look at their band advert where they actually blocked out their own shoe on their ad. Imagine that, like, who does that? You're trying to sell the shoe, but you actually block out the shoe to make people just go like, why are they blocking out their shoe in their own advert? Like, so they really kind of, I wouldn't say they started the rebellion, but they enforced rebellious advertising. And that's kind of what's led that. So now every ad is trying to be edgy in some way, like every kind of streetwear ad, we have to be edgy, we have to be street and that sort of stuff. But Nike, you know, and then obviously they hired Spike Lee to do like, and at that time Spike Lee was on fire with his films as well. So that also helped. And it was just a good marriage.
And do you think Nike are kind of like the beginners of that hype machine? Because I think, you know, in the film you can see when, you know, Converse were running things with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and those guys. But I guess the level of hype didn't really, certainly in my opinion, it didn't really exist until sort of Michael Jordan came on the scene with the Jordan 1s. Do you think they were kind of like the originators of how hype kind of was around sneakers, that, you know?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the hype, it could even be before, maybe before Jordan or just kind of during his time, is the price of the shoes. Yeah. I think the price of the shoe created a kind of mystique around the shoe, because back in those days, I think the Jordan 1s were like, I think $64.99. And then the Jordan 2s were $7. I think the price kept going up. And then I think it wasn't until like the 3s and 4s, they became like $100 shoe. Mm-hmm. So when the shoe touches that $100 mark, especially like in the 80s and 90s, you know that if you wear the shoe, you got money.
Yeah.
So that kind of mentality kind of made it like, people need to start, you know, and I think that's where the hype starts, because, you know, unfortunately, in America at that time, what a lot of young kids don't know is people were getting robbed for their shoes. You know, it was literally, you got $100 shoe, you got money, and then you get robbed. Even in the UK, like West End, it was a crazy time.
As with anything, and the film touches on this as well, but as with anything, when it becomes rare, it becomes valuable, and then people start to collect it. So, you know, people might look at shoe collecting as a bit of a weird thing. So for anyone who thinks that, like, what would you say? What would you say to someone how would you explain shoe collecting to someone who doesn't necessarily understand the world?
I think it's like anything. I think people collect cars, people collect magazines, people collect, you know, ornaments and stuff like that. And I think trainers and sneaker collecting is the same thing. Like, you know, it's become such a massive niche that you can now have a selection of trainers that's like rare or sought after, or even a valuable asset. I've never kind of really seen myself as a collector, if that makes any sense. I had dope shoes when I was a kid, and I have dope shoes now. And I think now it's become like, you know, people be like, Rav, Frank, your collection's crazy. But I've never really kind of seen it as that, you know, until recently. Like, wow, like, do you get what I mean? So And one thing about me is I never really show my collection. I don't show it because it's kind of for me, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, I've turned down a lot of major news companies coming to my house to film, and I'll be like, nah, I don't. It'll be the right type of moment for me to show it. To be fair.
And you touched on something that, you know, these were shoes that you had when you were growing up. How big a part does nostalgia play in I guess, in the Jordan legacy? Like, because I know when I was growing up, you know, seeing Game 4 Cavs when he does the buzzer beating shot, like I wanted the black cements. Like that was something that I wanted. Like, how does nostalgia play a role for you when it comes to?
Indeed. And I think that's the stories, you know, because I feel like, especially with the Jordan 4s, I remember like that year, it was my mum's birthday, and my cousin, like I had the SE3s or SE2s, and you know, I was the don at the party. Like everyone was like, "Yo, Frank, you're trainers," and my cousin walked in the Jordan 4s and checked and shift, and it's like I just have that memory of me like, "Mom, I want these trainers. Like this is the new stuff." Like, you know, and I just didn't. You know, and so when you see the trainers kind of retro and stuff, that's why sometimes you might buy retro 3 or 4 times, and then you before you even worn the original one that you purchased. It's a bit like the Jordan Breads. I think I've got like maybe 4 pairs now, like, and there's still some I've like brand new, like I haven't worn, like, you know. So,
and just explain what bread means for anyone who doesn't.
Yeah, so the black and red Jordan 1s, the band Jordan 1s. So, I mean, the nickname became bread because it's black and red, to be fair. Yeah. It wasn't called bread back in those days, if I'm honest, but now people, you know, they shorten things, bread and, you know, and stuff. So, like you said, the winning shots, like, you remember the time when Jordan was winning, you want to feel that spirit. It's like, you know, it's this nostalgia.
As an entrepreneur yourself, you know, you got your fingers in many pies, you know, doing loads of incredible things. Where can people find you? This isn't the end of the interview. I just want to just give you an opportunity.
I know. Yeah, I mean, on Instagram mainly, that's where my main channel is. It's at King of Trainers. And yeah, you can Google a lot of stuff I do. You know, I do an award show called the Drop of the Year with Sneaker Society, and I help out different charities, you know, and things like that. So yeah, and I do campaigns. We just done a campaign with a major store. So yeah, it's hard work, but it's you know, I'm loving it.
Being an entrepreneur and seeing how Jordan has kind of you know, diversified his portfolio and his empire. I mean, as a black man, seeing that, you know, seeing a sportsman of his stature become this incredible businessman, are you inspired by that? Is that something where you feel like you feel part of the legacy somehow because Jordan Brand means so much for you, and the fact that it's a black man doing this, does that have an influence?
Indeed. Indeed. You know, I think that also builds the kind of hype machine, because like when Jordan was playing, he was the best player in the league. Like hands down, like, and he was a black man. Do you get what I mean? And then to be, you know, one of the most famous, if not the most famous sports person in the world, you want to be part of that. You want to, like, you know, whoever says they don't want to, it's like, yo, that's a bit crazy. When I was younger and I was wearing trainers and Jordans and stuff like that, it felt like I had a gold medal around my neck. Like I felt like good. Like it was such a good feeling. And it is a good feeling now. And sometimes it's weird to me when I see people be like, oh, I'm selling my whole collection, because that's never what I got it for. Like, if you're going through bad times, I sold a lot of trainers myself, but if you're going through bad times, you should be like, I got to keep 1 or 2 pairs. I got to feel, you know, do you know what I mean? I got to feel to have that feeling. And some people, yeah, I guess they lose that feeling and, you know, it's up to them, but I still get excited. I still get excited every time. I'm like, ooh, you know, I still get that feeling inside.
The film itself doesn't shy away from the, you know, the negative side of collecting shoes. And I know you've been quite vocal about how, you know, not just Nike, you know, a number of other sneaker companies could be potentially more responsible in how they release shoes. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Over time, things have changed. I mean, you know, before they'll release it in store, for example, and then people will camp out. And, you know, there was a time when it was an orderly thing. People camp out, queue up responsibly, etc., etc. But then it came to the time where it started to get unruly. you know, outside these stores. The unfortunate thing is the stores never used to hire the right security, and I used to blast them all the time. Every store gets it. Like, no one's exempt from the raft of me just calling them out. And now, you know, because things used to get so hectic and fights used to happen at stores and people getting robbed and stuff like that, you know, they now do like kind of raffles, you know, and then they do raffles via their website or their app, but then that causes a problem because now the robots are basically designed to buy these trainers. So it's become very hard to get what you want, if I'm honest. Like, you're competing with so many different people that do so many different things that you're like, am I even gonna even get a pair, so to speak? So it's tough, but I feel that the shops and brands have a responsibility to make things fairer for all. You know, not just the elitists and stuff like that, and just make things fairer for all. You know, a lot of people think for me, I get hooked up with every pair. I actually don't. I buy a lot of pairs. You know, I mean, I've worked hard enough to have people and friends in stores, but I still have to buy pairs, and sometimes they can't give me the pair. So I just take it on the chin and move on.
And I mean, we've seen some really unfortunate incidents, you know, not only in America, but also here and, you know, across Europe of, you know, violence and fights starting as well. I mean, how can brands navigate that? How can they, you know, because when people are queuing up and, you know, you can see the queues kind of spilling out on the streets, like, what would be your kind of, I guess, your antidote to how brands fix that? What is it? Releasing more shoes? Is it, you know, making the shoes more widely available at more places? Like, what would you say?
When it comes to first come, first serve, they need the right security. It's literally security. Because I've seen when, like Nike especially, when they get the right security, everything gets shut down. You know, no one's moving, everything's proper, like tight. And I think they just need to do that sometimes. And all the stores need to do that. And some stores have got it on point, but then some stores, they get relaxed and they think that but now I think, you know, without me kind of boosting Jordan brand too much, I think every Jordan trainer that's released, like whether it's a Jordan 1, everyone that's released and there's some form of queue, it's always going to be a madness. Like, you know, so it's they can't control people, but they can control the way people behave if they actually pay attention. But I think sometimes it does get to that stage where they're thinking value for money. So if they hire too much security, then it doesn't make the shoe cost effective. But then if that's the case, just put it online. You know, just put it online, you know, put some firewalls up so the bots can't get it. You know, it's not that difficult, if I'm honest.
I'm gonna go back to Jordan himself, because I think he is not immune to criticism. And I think, again, the film doesn't shy away from the criticisms that have been leveled towards him. So, you know, there's one part in the film where he could potentially endorse a Democratic candidate, a mayoral candidate who is black, and he looked to find Jordan as a you know, as an endorser of him. And Jordan replied that Republicans buy shoes too. So, you know, very canny businessman. But I think, you know, for a lot of people who, you know, for a lot of the black community who traditionally do vote on the left, you know, they were quite upset by that comment. So I guess, do you think he waited too long to talk about societal issues that affect the people who normally buy his shoes? Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I would say, from the outside looking in, you'll be like, he waited too long and stuff like that. But I think sometimes you have to kind of let the person do it naturally, you know, and if it's not in their spirit, and I mean, at the time, I think he was just really concentrating on basketball. He didn't want to kind of be a political figure. And sometimes what we do is we put too much emphasis on celebrities. You know, sometimes they don't want to speak out. They just want to just play their thing in this, you know, and shy away from politics. But I think obviously now that we've got social media and stuff like that, yeah, celebrities do have an obligation. But I think at that time, he probably was like, I don't understand it. I don't really know too much about it, you know. But I heard he gave a donation or something like that. But I think we put a lot of emphasis on celebrities, and unfortunately, we put a lot of emphasis on black celebrities, because I know that sometimes you look at some white celebrities and they don't speak out as much about politics, and you're like, how, like, you know, we don't say nothing about them. Do you get what I mean?
It's only recently did Jordan Brand make that massive contribution and commitment to the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think, you know, a few years ago, you know, people like him were quite quiet. So, you know, I'm just asking whether it's possible to separate, in the same way you could separate a person from the art, can you separate the man from the brand? So we have such a love for his shoes and for his legacy, but actually the political, is that something that we can, like, can we hold him to the same count? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I even called Jordan Brand out myself for taking too long, because a lot of these companies, they say, oh, we're going to donate, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and now, you know, in the second wave of Black Lives Matter, a lot of them haven't done anything, you know, or they've done things in a way that is unattainable. Like, you know, I've set up an organization called Creative Union. I'm trying to obtain some of the money. Like, how do we obtain this money? What's the forms we fill in? What's the places we go? What do we do to get this money? And I think with Jordan, I think sometimes you have to separate the brand, you know, from the person, because the brand is probably bigger now, you know. I think you recognize a Jordan shoe before you recognize a Jordan himself. Like, he could be wearing, like, maybe a disguise, but you'll know, oh, that's a Jordan shoe, you know. So I think you have to kind of separate that aspect. And him himself, yeah, now he's vocal, which is, I guess, it's a good thing. It's always good when people are vocal, but I think, like I said before, maybe we put too much emphasis on him as a thing, because at the end of the day, he's with Nike as well. So Nike need to be like, okay, we're gonna put the money in to make a stand, which they've kind of done. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
So listen, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jordans you're going to break out next time. So thank you.
Yeah, that's all good. Cool.